Hi y'all. Today I'd like to talk to you about something called fibromyalgia and managing your life if you have this diagnosis or if you think you might. I'll give you 4 tips on how you can thrive with this diagnosis because I've lived through it. Hi, my name's Kim and I'm known as Ma to a lot of the important people in my life. So welcome to my channel. Here's where I'd like to share advice and tips and tricks for making your life better in our crazy world today. So please come join my community, like and subscribe, and leave me a comment on what you'd like to see in the future, because I love hearing from people who take the time to watch. So let's start out with a little history lesson because I am a teacher, so I like to teach things. Fibromyalgia started, the term was coined in the 1970s, which blew my mind because when I was diagnosed in 2008, it was something totally new to me. So when I was diagnosed in 2008, it was really just coming about in the literature and widespread knowledge of it. And the main criteria for diagnosis was widespread pain, and that's exactly what I had. So apparently it's still an evolving diagnosis because when I was diagnosed, like I said, the widespread pain was the main diagnostic feature, but now more symptoms have since been added. And these include the sleep issues, the fibrofog, which is like your brain confusion or inability to think straight, the exhaustion no matter how much sleep you get, sometimes things like headaches, irritable bowel syndrome, TMJ disorders, which I have, anxiety and depression. So it's a very wide spectrum of symptoms. I could really go down a rabbit hole with this, but that's a whole different video. So if you want to hear about it, I'll make one. Let me know. So that's the history of the disorder. Well, a short history of the disorder. Here's my short history. I was celebrating my 6-year-old's birthday at a roller skating rink and skating with him and my niece holding their hands, and we all fell together. I fell on my backside and thought that maybe I had cracked my tailbone, but that wasn't cracked. I started having these weird symptoms. For example, at the end of my teaching day, I'd be standing in the hallway and I would feel like someone came up and poured a pitcher of exhaustion over my head. It just flowed down me. I would be sitting in the recliner at home grading papers and poof, I'd wake up 2 hours later. It was the freakiest thing. I was wearing 4 and 5 layers of clothing all winter long in the house with the heat on. So all of these bizarre things were happening and my primary care physician couldn't diagnose a thing. So she did blood test after blood test and she tested my rheumatoid factor, and that was a lucky break for me because she decided that I had rheumatoid arthritis because of that RA factor, which is actually not diagnostic, I learned later, but she sent me to a rheumatologist. He, on the other hand, asked me a bunch of questions, did the pain point test, and told me it was fibromyalgia. I was in total shock at the time, but I actually was kind of hopeful at that point because fibro does not destroy tissue the way RA does. So my healing journey, or my journey with fibromyalgia, I won't say I'm healed because I do still have flare-ups, started then. I started doing research on a lot of what they think causes it. First thing, stress. I had to learn how to say no. We had 2 young boys. They were in all the sports. I was volunteering. I was working full-time as a teacher, and you know how stressful that is. So I learned a new word, as my mom used to say, learn the word no. Number 2, food. This, I think, was kind of the key for me, specifically aspartame. I found out that aspartame was a huge problem when they were trying to get it approved for use in soft drinks. I quit all artificial sweetener and all high fructose corn syrup, and within 1 year, I was about 80% better. It was the biggest shock that I have ever had. But up until that point, I had had either a Coke Zero or a Diet Coke every day of my life since I was 16, and at that point I was 42. So that's a lot of artificial sweetener. Okay, number 3 is sleep. Now, you can't just tell yourself to get to sleep. Sometimes you need help. So the rheumatologist gave me cyclobenzaprine and told me that if I didn't sleep 2 nights in a row, the 3rd night I needed to take it so that I would get a good night's sleep. Now there's all kinds of things that you can take. If you are in a state where it's legal, try some CBD, try some THC, see if it helps. Next thing is yoga, number 4. Yoga, I think, is like a miracle exercise because unlike walking or running, get this, they say that it's the best for clearing your mind because the positions are so hard to hold that you can't be ruminating about what you're worried about. You have to be thinking about, is my leg in the right position? Is my arm in the right position? Am I doing this right? So there's lots of good channels for yoga, and I will link my favorite down there. I am not sponsored by any yoga channels, but I do enjoy yoga. So one more bonus thing here, and that is gluten. 8 years after my diagnosis of fibromyalgia, I was diagnosed as non-celiac gluten sensitive. And this was because I had a new primary care physician. We had moved to Colorado by that time. And she asked me about my digestive issues. And I said, well, it's just part of the fibromyalgia. And she said, we probably should test you for gluten. And of course, my response was, every celiac I've ever known has been this big around, because usually they are. And her response, good doctor here, is the disorders do not read the books. So anybody can be celiac. Anyway, it turned out that no, I wasn't celiac, but I do have gluten sensitivity. So I do try to stay away from gluten. I will say it is much harder for me than the artificial sweeteners to stay away from. But what I try to do is I take the advice of a complementary doctor that my sister saw when she was going through cancer treatment, which she beat, by the way. And that is, if you don't have to kill it or pick it, don't eat it. Gluten can be a trigger for a lot of people for a lot of things. So see if that's also a trigger for you. Basically, I think food is a huge part of fibromyalgia. If you think about the way we eat as a society these days, we eat a lot of processed foods that were not around 30, 40, 50 years ago. So I would say take as much processing out of the foods that you eat as you possibly can. So those are my 4 tips and 5 bonus with gluten. Let me know what you think. And if you are starting this journey and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to do it, watch the next video here. And it should give you a little bit of a, hopefully, inspiration. Thanks for coming to see me today. I hope you come back soon, and love you. Bye.